daddies in the room, fathers, father figures, thank you. We honor you. I won't ask for a show of hands, but how many wounded sons and daughters because of that father wound? And you don't have to put up your hand. But I want you to know that I'm very aware of what that feels like. And I want to say that it's not, I'm not trying to let your dads or fathers off the hook. But the truth is that many of them also were carrying wounds. And they lived their life through their wounds. Some of them just learned how to survive. They got so used to surviving, they forgot how to thrive. And some of us are in that same condition to this day, and we perpetuate the same things because, well, we're living from a wound. And we end up by mistake bleeding all over other people in our dis-ease. Because whatever you don't heal, you'll repeat. And if you don't transform your hurt, you will transfer it. And you'll transfer it onto and superimpose it onto everything you're receiving through your eyes and your ears, all of the processing that you do in your mind, relationships in and out of them, with your children, with your partner, wherever you may go in this life. If you don't heal it, you'll transfer it in some way to someone else. And I think I'm talking to a group of people who are more interested in transformation than just healing. Let me say what I've come to realize in my life is that most of us chase healing so we can avoid transformation. I'm going to say that one more time. Most of us chase healing so that we can avoid transformation, because you can heal this current thing here and never have to leave, never have to become anything else, never have to transform, never have to unfold fully. You can just patch it up. But transformation is not a bandage. Transformation is mutation, it is change, it is metamorphosis, it's evolving. Most of us want a revolution because we feel more comfortable revolving. It's dizzying, but we feel more comfortable doing it because transformation requires that you give over your whole self and that you may have to be disloyal to your old self. And the old self will feel betrayed and it'll scream at you in the dark. Why are you doing this to me? Who are you? Anybody who's gone through transformation understands that. You feel that. So I wanted to speak to that in regards to the men in the house. There was a recent poll that was put out that some of the most misunderstood individuals, based on this poll and this survey, some of the most misunderstood individuals in this country, at least, are men, especially young men. Some of them are trying to figure out why they're carrying the brunt of what their fathers did to women and to other people in the world. And they're trying to figure out why they're carrying that blame. And that everywhere they go, they feel like it's not good to be a male. That there's something wrong inherently with being a man. Masculinity often gets attacked because it's misunderstood that masculinity has nothing to do with domination. It has everything to do with devotion. But because our fathers operated in such a way, and many fathers back before them operated in such a way as to dominate other people, we kind of carry the brunt of that as if we are the same. And I got to tell you, it can be very frustrating because there are some of us out here who are just good dudes trying to live good dude lives and just really want to be good dudes to a bunch of dudettes and other dudes. And I'm not saying we don't make mistakes. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that it's important for us in an inclusive community like this to understand that radical inclusion also means that we include the dudes too, and that we don't automatically suspect that there's something wrong with them because they're male. Does that help, men? Does that help? Let me hear from the men. I normally say, let me hear from the women in the house. But are there any men in the house that agree with that? Yeah, right down front. All three of us. See, some of us dudes are afraid of that too. We're afraid to shout and to roar a little bit because we're concerned that it's going to be misunderstood. But the truth is that I believe I'm in the room with a bunch of men who are more than willing to transcend the wounds of the past and to really reinvent in our world today and reiterate what it really is to be a man, what it is to stand in your divine masculinity. There's nothing wrong with your divine masculinity. There's nothing wrong with you as a man. Pat yourself on the chest and say, I'm an all right guy. I'm an all right guy. So I wanted to speak to the peaceful warriors today. I wanted to talk to those who understand that the strength is not about domination, it's about devotion. Those who understand that the only conquering I ever need to do in my life is the conquering of my own emotional self. That it's okay for me to be emotional. I'm not ashamed of my tears, but I got to tell you, I grew up in a world where I was told to be. Big boys don't. See, it's quick, isn't it? You know why? Because it was a false narrative that was ingrained into the hearts of boys and men. Is still the attempts on that now. And that is, I heard things like rub some dirt in it and walk it off. Oh boy, get over it. Man up. And man up becomes bitterness. Man up becomes anger. Man up becomes, I just need somebody to be available to me. It's okay for men to be vulnerable. Fellas, that doesn't mean that you lack masculinity. In fact, it means you're in touch with your true self. Because all of us are emotional beings. And the reason that we have so much commotion is because we've never developed emotionally. And so there's a call to our men to really step into the gap right now in a way like never before, because we see on display that false power. You know, I hear people talking about we're speaking truth to power, but let me tell you something, we're not. We're speaking truth to pseudo-power that's trying to present itself as power. But power is not domination by military might. It doesn't take an army. God doesn't need an army. So I was raised all my life that God's raising up an army. Be a good little soldier boy. If your God needs an army, your God's too small. Because a God that's a God of all creation doesn't need a military force, because if that God does, then that God is not all powerful. If that God needs you to take up arms to defend it, you need to let that God go. Look at your neighbor and say, let that God go, because that God's too small. But most of us men are not afraid of failure. We're afraid of what happens if we actually succeed. We're not afraid of failure. We're afraid of what might happen if we succeed, because success is threatening. Not just success in the external world, but in the internal world. It's threatening. It asks you to die to your old identity. It asks you to betray the person that you were. It asks you to grow so much that that old self is going to feel that you're being disloyal, that you're going to have to bury the old version of yourself. The one who was comfortable being small, being relatable, being average. You've held that version of you like a safety blanket because you were so injured by the father in your life who was unavailable. See, we've had kind of really two different types of fathers that I think I'm 47 years young. I used to say 47 years old, and now I'm saying 47. I'm about to adopt Dr. Michael Beckwith's way of living in the world. People ask him his age, and he won't tell them. He'll just say, I'm ageless. And isn't that so wonderful? But I'm 47 years young, and there's kind of two different types of men that I grew up around. One was the type of father who was the hunter-gatherer, always going and working, always doing stuff, providing for the family, would say to the son, of course I love you. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't put a roof over your head and food in your belly and clothes on your back. Boy, don't you know, I don't have to tell you I love you. Look at all I'm doing for you. That was one type of father who was always on the go, believing he had to produce and he had to be something great. And in his eyes, great meant success in the eyes of the world. It was some of the fathers I grew up with. And the other ones who were available for all of the games and all of the athletics, and they were always looking at your report card, and they were always telling you to succeed, giving you ways to succeed, working with you, but emotionally unavailable. You couldn't approach them because when you started to go there, it was too much heart. Boy, get your head right. That's all you need. Does that sound familiar? The different fathers we grew up with. And it wasn't just toward the boys, it was toward the girls too. It was the girls need their mamas. Girls need their mamas. No, fathers, be good to your daughters. Daughters will love like you do. So some of us feel a gaping hole in our soul. But this is an invitation today to finally heal that wound, to finally write a new story. Not by going and making your dad do things over. Your dad had the capacity that your dad operated with. But see, when I finally realized I could no longer, and this is what happens in transformation, that I could no longer blame my dad. I could no longer blame my trauma. I could no longer blame the world for where I was at. I began to finally heal and mature and grow. I was no longer afraid of growth because I didn't need anyone else to affirm or confirm that. Carl Jung said this many years ago. Powerful, powerful view. He said, at some point in your life, you're going to have to learn how to parent yourself. See, if you didn't appreciate the parenting, if you didn't like the parenting you were experiencing in your life, that it's going to be time for you to take charge of that and start to go into the inside of yourself and really take by the hands and look right in the eyes the child that you were and do the work. What kind of parent would you have wanted? Be that parent to your child self that's on the inside. You can do that. Because the divine father and mother lives inside of you and you can rise above it. And I know that maybe your wound is so deep that you actually have wrapped your identity around it. So a lot of us identify with pain, with hurt. In fact, we identify so much with our wounds that we put off healing because it feels strange. It feels odd to feel good. I'm going to say this one time today and then move right along. Stop being afraid of freedom. Stop fearing your freedom. Start looking the jail cell up and down and deciding, do I want to stay confined and defined by this when there's a world out there that's just waiting for me to experience it from a healed point of view? You've wrapped your wounds in that identity. You've made a home out of your limitations and you've decorated it well. But men, we can bust out and really know what it is to live free. I think there's some women in this room that would say they agree too. That it's okay for you to be a man and to be in your strength and to be in your talent and your gift and your power and to know who you really are and to be confident and courageous and brave. These are all aspects of divine masculinity. And that divinity is waiting to be explored by you. Carl Jung said this also. I've been reading some Carl Jung lately. He was on to some things. Lisa, I think you'll appreciate this one. He said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Why is that? Because there's such a deep wound there that you've become identified with, that you find it hard for you to look at the real you. This is why you're distracted by careers and success and awards. This is why we're distracted by sex. This is why we're distracted by drugs. This is why we medicate instead of meditate, because when you meditate, you have to go in and face your soul. But the only way you're ever going to fully transform into the wonderful being that you were intended to be is to face yourself. What you don't face, you'll never change. That's right. And you are gorgeous, you are beautiful, you are powerful. You're not a natural born sinner. You're not evil, you're not vile. There's not something wrong with you. There's so much right about you that the society around you is afraid you'll find out. Because if you find out, you'll no longer be a way for them to draw energy out of you to fuel their ridiculousness. Transformation requires a total shift. Somebody say total shift of your entire being. And that's why we avoid transformation. Because we're afraid that when we do that, we're going to rise and then we're going to lose the version who is dependent on being broken. The version of us that was so used to feeling bad, that feeling good feels hypocritical. Whew. Does that land with anybody? I mean, when you get used to being a survivor, you forget how to be a thriver. When you get used to being wounded, you forget how to be healed. And this is why we re-wound ourselves with consistent and constant judgment of our own selves. This is why we find it hard to even receive compliments. Somebody will tell you, you're looking so good, and you try to talk them out of it. It's almost as if you think it's more right for people to walk up to you and insult you. And that's because we live in a world that has been dependent on people playing small, has needed worker bees so that they could pump all of the wealth up to the top. I know, I'm beating this drum lately, but I'm telling you, it's time for us to get free. It's time for us to really get free, to really get free. When you rise up, you're going to lose that version of you that was dependent on being broken. You might be surprised at how addicted to the brokenness you've become. And you have withdrawals. But I think it's time. Men, women, boys and girls, it's time for us to start making decisions that freak our comfort zone out. Somebody say, I want to freak my comfort zone out. Wait. Before you do that, remember, it's not inspirational, it's uncomfortable. I want to freak my comfort zone out gives you nice little goosebumps, but in reality, it's not inspirational, it's uncomfortable. Think about what you're saying. I want to freak my comfort zone out, which means you're going to have to move into some discomfort, but you're never going to grow being comfortable where you are. You're going to start setting boundaries. And when you set those boundaries, people are going to be shocked because they've been dependent on your silence. People are going to start to freak out because the fact is that they have been depending on you being quiet and just going along. But when you start to lift your voice, some folks are going to, I know what it's like. Some folks are going to kick back, push back on you. And they're going to ask you, what has happened to you? Who are you? I don't even know you anymore. Listen, if you've had those statements, you need to have a shouting fit, like a Rebecca Joy kind of shouting fit. Because if you are transforming, that's what's going to happen. Some of the people closest to you who have been depending on you, playing small and giving them all your energy, are going to wonder who the heaven you are. You start becoming no longer available to mediocrity. And that has consequences. You start looking at mediocrity and saying, there's no room for you in my life. And say, I'm not talking about complexity here. I'm not saying success is not about how much you have. It's not about the material things in your life. It's not about how much you're bragged on. Success is, we need to reevaluate how we define success. Success is about you completely fulfilling the unfoldment of your divine self. That's really all it is. It's about you being happy and joyful and living in love and peace in your journey through this life. That's all success is. We've measured it so weirdly. Riches is not about a number. Riches is about you answering the call to align with your divine self. It's about vibrational frequency and you locating it. The greatest accomplishment in your life is going to be becoming your authentic self. And nobody else can define that for you. Even the voice of your father is still in your head, telling you because you made a mistake, you'll never amount to anything. I've had it said. I've been in the place where I performed all of the time because I found that in performance, I found my dad was proud. And he was proud of me when I was performing in the way he wanted me to perform. But when I stopped performing, all that pride went out the window. So I became an actor in his play with no pay. Y'all heard? I said I became an actor in his play with no pay. And guess what? He was only perpetuating what he experienced in his life. And I realized that. And that's why I've been able to release him instead of being angry at him. I'm not mad about it. Somebody say, I ain't mad about it no more. You can choose to get past that wounding by realizing that the most important thing in this life is for you to become your authentic self. And somebody says, who is that? How do I know that's my authentic self? Oh, I'm telling you, you start tuning into it and calling for it, your heart's going to answer. And when your heart answers, your heart is going to lead you in the path of righteousness for its name's sake, that even though you may walk through the valley of the shadow of the death of your old self, you'll fear no evil, for God is with you, rod and staff comforting you, preparing a place for you, even in the presence of your enemies. Your cup will run over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow you all of the days of your life. And even after that, you'll dwell in the house of the universal law forever. I hear my spiritual daddy saying, son, from the womb to the tomb, the greatest task is to remember who you are. I woke up this morning and the words ringing in my ears from Carlton Pearson was, son, actually, you probably would have said, Jonathan, from the womb to the tomb, the greatest task to remember is who you are. Somebody say, I'm waking up to who I am. Look at your neighbor and say, you better watch out, I'm waking up. I'm not telling you that because I got bad breath. I'm just saying I'm waking up. Now, I'm not warning you. I'm going to say this and then I'll close. Growth in being uncomfortable. Discomfort doesn't mean it's wrong, dangerous, or bad. You heard? I said when growth feels uncomfortable, it doesn't mean it's wrong, dangerous, or bad. In fact, it's a sign that you are transforming and transcending wherever you have been. Stop thinking that discomfort is a bad thing. Discontent, a holy discontent, means that there is something happening in you, inviting you into another level of your journey. See, so many times, even a new thought, we want everybody to be comfortable and smiling all the time. And we're making folks lie. We're making people perform. Sometimes you cry. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes you're uncomfortable. Sometimes your joy is way down deep. It's pushing all the other to the top so that it can burst forth. But it takes a little time sometimes. It's not all about laughing and smiling. Man, don't you just love those folks that every time you see them, they're like bouncing off the walls? You know what I'm saying? You're like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I am blessed and highly flavored. Hey, I woke up this morning and I was floating through my room. And you just want to be like, can I just punch you in the throat one time like this? You see, I'm not coming against joy and happiness. That's not what I'm doing. But I'm looking for some authentic people, some real people, some genuine people who know that sometimes you're going through I almost said something about a storm. You're going through a storm sometimes. And that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means that you are actually in the storms don't come to destroy you. Storms come to remove what wasn't you. So being uncomfortable is not bad or wrong or dangerous. It means you're expanding. It means you're leaving the cage of self-doubt. It means you're walking into the wilderness of your truth. In a metaphysical way, fathering is about creation, the power of creation and guidance and protection, the transmission of values. Healthy masculinity today, to me, is about being able to aim and have focus, purpose, strength, and grace. It's about the ability to be strong in the midst of challenges and circumstances. Dr. David Alexander wrote a whole beautiful blog about this in his Substack. I encourage you, if you've not experienced Dr. David Alexander, you should go and check him out online. But he wrote an article titled "From the Myth to Man." From the myth to man, reimagining strength. And he said this: what if we started to honor strength, the strength it takes to listen? Now, with some people, it takes a lot of strength to listen. Y'all ain't I'm the only one? Some folks, it's like lifting weights to listen. Y'all heard? But he said, what if we honored the strength it takes as men, as fathers, as husbands, as just people in general, to listen? What if we honored the strength it takes to apologize? And not to qualify the apology. Y'all do know, right, that if somebody says to you, hey, listen, if you tell somebody, hey, listen, the way you spoke to me hurt my feelings, and they say to you, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But if you hadn't have, that but just negated everything they just did. That's not an apology. An apology doesn't need you to qualify it behind it. I'm telling you, as men, as fathers, when your children say to you, Dad, do you remember that time? You said such and such. That really hurt me deeply. You know, it's automatic in the heart of somebody who's doing their best to want to justify. They don't need you to justify anything. Just listen and offer an apology. It doesn't matter whether you understand or not. Can we hear this today? Can we get real up in here today? This will help you as couples too, by the way. This is some good couple advice. Your wife, your husband, your spouse, whether you gay, straight, bi, or trying, whatever it may be, your relationships in your life will go so much smoother if you just hear what they're saying. You take the strength to listen and you simply apologize based on the fact that they received it the way they received it and it hurt their feelings. You don't have to justify that you didn't mean to. Hopefully they know that by now in your relationship. If not, y'all are in a toxic relationship. If y'all can't give each other the benefit of the doubt, something's wrong with your relationship already. I'm trying to give some relationship advice here. Because I've been divorced twice. And there's two things. There's one of two things that means. That means I need to shut up about marriage. Or it means I got a master's and a doctorate degree in how not to do it. And one of the things I used to do out of my father wound is instead of apologizing, I started needing to justify that I didn't mean to do that. And maybe it's how you took it. Maybe it's how you perceived it. Perception is the ultimate reality, whether it's the ultimate truth or not, honey. Not a good idea. Why don't we acknowledge the strength it takes to listen, to really apologize? Here's an easy one. To stay in the discomfort of vulnerability. To stay in the discomfort of vulnerability, because as men, we have been taught that vulnerability is weakness. And it's not. It's strength. It's power. Jesus, arguably the most famous man in Christian history, notice he didn't ride into Jerusalem on a war horse. He rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. He didn't climb the ladder of Roman success. He overturned tables when the thieves were stealing. And when faced with the ultimate expression of imperial masculinity, state-sanctioned violence, he refused to return that violence in kind. True masculinity is not threatened by tenderness. True masculinity is not threatened by tenderness. It is not measured by aggression. It is measured by a man's capacity to be accountable, emotionally available, spiritually grounded, and willing to learn and evolve. Willingness to learn and expand takes tremendous bravery. And true strength is not domination, it is devotion. Devotion to being your best self, devotion to your family, devotion to your community, devotion to your neighbors. And when it's time to stand up and flex, a true man does so in response to bullies, does not become one. So in closing, my second one. If they have not already given arrowheads out, they will after service. And we were trying to figure out, Carrie's not in here, so it's easier to give forgiveness than permission. We were sitting on the beach, and she said, I think that we need to come up with something, an acknowledgement to give to the fathers at church, because we gave flowers to the mothers. And I said, well, just give flowers to the men too. And she said, oh, no, they don't want flowers. I said, how do you know they don't want flowers? They may love flowers. I said, just a minute, that's a little bit sexist. That's why I say she's not anymore. I said, why are you being so sexist? She said, well, I know, maybe so, but I don't know. You know, it's just not traditional. I said, there's a lot of things that are traditional that don't need to be. I said, but I'll look it up. I'll start looking some things up. And I started looking up interesting and unique gifts for fathers at Father's Day. And arrowheads came up. And then I started looking into the culture and the tradition amongst the indigenous people in this nation around arrowheads. And arrowheads were not just used for hunting or for battle. They were representative of these things. And I wanted to share these with you because you're going to receive those in just a few moments. And then I'll get out of your hair. Number one, they represent being drawn back so that you can be launched forward. So there's something about understanding that when you feel like you're being pulled back, you know, one step forward or three steps back, it could be that you're just preparing for a launch, and that sometimes there needs to be a drawback in order to launch forward. Number two, it represents targeting with purpose. In other words, having reason and purpose in your life, being aimed with focus. Number three, it represents strength and resilience. And in the Cherokee tribe, they believed that it was representation of the fact that the divine power, the Great Spirit, had instilled in you its strength. And number four, it represented being released with intention and with grace. And so they would actually give arrowheads to the boys, the young boys, and they would go through this process with them, a whole ceremony around understanding that there's going to be drawbacks in life. You're going to feel drawn back. You're going to feel sometimes like you're falling backwards. When that happens, recognize the Great Spirit within you is getting prepared to launch you forward. Then they would share with them, this means to have targeted purpose in your life. And I would say in this regard, start living intentionally instead of accidentally, and you won't be wrecking yourself so much. Live intentionally, not accidentally. And then they would say to them, this also represents strength and resilience. For you to be strong is so important for yourself, for your family, but for this tribe in general. And then they would share with them, this is about being released with intention, but also with grace. And the early fathers of the church and the wilderness fathers used to say that grace was the ability to stand with tension and intention all at the same time. To be able to stand in grace with both tension and intention at the same time. And so when they give those arrowheads to you, you can do what you want to with them. But consider taking those little bit of a little paper that's has a message written on it to remind you of some of these things today. Take that arrowhead and consider in your life if those kinds of core values work for you. And when you hold it, set the intention to heal the father wound. Because I want to remind us what I said a little earlier. If we don't, whatever pain we don't transform, we transfer. Because you're always giving energy away. And the question is it toxic or is it healthy energy? And I, for one, want my energy to be healthy energy. I'm going to share this, and then this is not a third closing. This is a part of the second closing. I didn't start writing poetry until like 2 weeks ago. So last week I shared a poem with you. I'm not going to do one every single week, okay? But this one came out. So I was like, okay, I'll give this one. So this one's titled Father's Day, The Arrow's Flight. A bowstring hums, a whispered call. The arrow waits, prepared for all. Not fear, nor doubt, nor weight of the past. Just steady aim, its purpose cast. Preparation, not punishment. Each challenge faced and heaven sent. The wind, the rain, the bending wood are shaping strength where once you stood. Purpose lives in presence now. No future ghost, no past's furrowed brow. The archer breathes, his hand is sure. The target clear, the focus pure. Resilience rises, forged in flame. No victims cry, and no whispered blame. The storm may howl, the earth may shake, but arrows turn what breaks to break. Not agony, but alchemy, a golden path where others flee. Integrity, not rigid right, but truth that bends like willows might. No mask to wear, no role to play, just you unflinching day by day. So fathers, sons, and those who rise, be arrows drawn through open skies. Your path is yours. Your strength is true. Fly bold, fly far, because the world needs you. And let me say to you, to those of you who there's that tinge of guilt and there's that voice of shame that tries to tell you it's too late. You hurt your children too much. That is a lie to keep you from healing the pain. Can you hear that? Please hear that. It is never too late to heal that pain. Even if your father has gone on, write a letter to him. Say all the stuff that you didn't say. Because a lot of times the words unsaid are festering in your soul. Write the letter. Say all the stuff. Even if you need to, cuss. Get done with that letter. And then burn it. Let it go. And then turn around and write a letter to you, the one that was harmed. That child inside. This is a very simple practice. You've heard of it before. It's used in therapy. It is therapeutic. Write that letter to that child that was harmed. All of the stuff that you would have wanted to hear, say it. The Father, Mother, God lives within you. Parent that child. Here's what you'll find, a retroactive healing. That's going to bring reconciliation. You'd be shocked at the reconciliation that will happen without you even picking up a phone. Somebody's going to call you that said they would never speak to you again when you heal all of that pain, because retroactively you're going to redeem the time. It's the powerful principle that you have within you. Take on that power. Take on that power. Heal yourself. Stop blaming yourself. judging yourself. Heal yourself. Judgment is a distraction from you becoming whole. We're not here to be pure. We're here to be whole. Heal yourself. And you heal the world around you.